saw
You know, I
yourself.
argued for 30 years for this to happen.
Right.
And finally, I wore him down.
He's Han Solo, Indiana Jones, the man who made the world believe that cynicism and heroism could live in the same body. But at 82 years old, Harrison Ford isn't hiding anymore. He's done with the smile, done with the diplomacy, and now for the first time, he's naming the 7 actors who tested him so severely that he walked away from everything: money, franchises, legacy, just to never work with them again. These aren't feuds built on ego or tabloid drama. These are collisions between a man who believes acting is sacred and actors who treated it like a game. And the way Ford handled each of these conflicts reveals something terrifying about him. He doesn't forgive. He doesn't compromise. He simply erases people from his world and moves on like they never existed. Welcome to the 7 feuds that prove Harrison Ford might be the most dangerous man in Hollywood. Let's start with the one that cost him an entire franchise. Shia LaBeouf, the rising star who made a catastrophic mistake. He challenged Ford's authority. In 2007, Ford was 65 years old. He came back to Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, returning to the role that had defined him for 4 decades. But this time, he wasn't alone. Shia LaBeouf was cast as his son, a fresh face, a hungry young actor, someone who should have been grateful to be on the same set as Harrison Ford. But LaBeouf treated every scene like an acting masterclass instead of a job. He improvised constantly, changed his lines, shifted his emotional approach mid-take. For Ford, who operates like a precision instrument, every beat calculated, every moment earned, it was chaos. Stunt coordinators reported that Ford would stop takes, visibly frustrated. "This isn't jazz," witnesses heard him say. "This is a symphony. Learn your part and play it right." The real explosion came after the film's release. LaBeouf gave an interview where he essentially admitted, "The actor's job is to make it work, and I couldn't do it." But then he dragged Ford with him. "We had major discussions. He wasn't happy with it either." That single sentence, placing the blame partially on Ford, was the line that couldn't be uncrossed. Ford shot back in an interview with brutal precision. "Sometimes people come to set thinking it's about them. It's not. It's about the story. If you can't serve the story, you serve yourself. And I don't work with people who serve themselves." And just like that, it was over. LaBeouf was erased. Years later, LaBeouf has openly regretted it. He's tried to reconcile. Ford has never responded, not once, not ever. But LaBeouf's mistake was just ignorance. The next man's mistake was arrogance. Brad Pitt, the actor who couldn't accept that he wasn't the smartest person in the room. The Devil's Own, 1997. Brad Pitt developed the script. He spent months on it. He had a vision. Then Ford came in, looked at what Pitt had created, and immediately saw problems. The character lacked complexity. The emotional stakes were shallow. The dramatic structure was confused. Instead of listening, Pitt dug in. He defended every line. He refused to accept Ford's suggestions. And this is where Ford learned something crucial about working with younger stars. Sometimes they're too invested in their own vision to see the forest for the trees. Pitt wanted to stay with his original concept. Ford wanted to transform the character into something deeper. They brought in a writer. They fought in pre-production meetings. And on set, the tension was suffocating. They didn't like each other. The crew felt it. The camera felt it. Even the final film felt it. And while the movie made money, both actors knew the truth. They'd wasted weeks of their lives because neither man could bend. Ford later described it in an interview. "Brad was great, really talented, but he couldn't let go of being the writer. Sometimes you have to stop being precious about your own ideas and surrender to something bigger." Years later, Pitt admitted that Ford had been right about the character all along. The complexity Ford suggested is what made the movie watchable. But Ford had already moved on. The damage to their relationship was permanent. Then there was the woman who refused to let Ford be in control on his own set. Sean Young, the actress who blurred professional boundaries so severely that it shattered the entire production. Blade Runner, one of the most iconic science fiction films ever made. Ford was supposed to be the anchor, the professional, the one who showed up, did his job, and left. But Sean Young had other ideas. She was using deep method preparation for her character Rachel. She was staying in character between takes. She was treating the relationship with Ford's character like it was real. The problem, Ford didn't want to blur those lines. He needed distance. He needed professionalism. But Young was invading his space, emotionally and psychologically. When they got to the love scene, the tension was unbearable. Not romantic tension, actual, painful tension. The crew literally started calling it the hate scene. Ridley Scott, the director, was furious with both of them, but Ford was angrier because Young had violated an unspoken rule. Keep the fantasy on screen. Keep your personal life separate. The worst part? Ford had to perform an intimate scene with someone who was making him deeply uncomfortable. Years later, Young tried to reconcile. Ford refused every attempt. He's never spoken to her since that final day on set. Not to apologize, not to explain, just silence. Complete, permanent erasure. But if Young crossed professional boundaries, then the next man crossed boundaries that went beyond Hollywood entirely. George Lucas, the director who taught Ford that even legends can become ordinary when they collaborate with mediocrity. Here's the thing about George Lucas and Harrison Ford. They hated each other from the first day of Star Wars. Completely hated each other. Lucas was a control freak obsessed with technical jargon. Ford was a practical actor who believed real emotions trump artificial constructions. When Lucas handed Ford a script with lines like, "These are the droids we're looking for," Ford literally said, "George, nobody talks like this." Lucas responded by making Ford deliver the line exactly as written, over and over and over, take after take. Ford's frustration built until finally he snapped, "You can write this shit, but you can't say it." The entire set went silent. Lucas didn't fire him. Ford was already too famous by then. But the damage was done. For 30 years, Ford carried resentment toward Lucas. He gave everything to those films. He made those characters iconic. But Lucas treated him like he was just another piece in his puzzle. When Ford finally got to work with other directors who respected his instincts, he realized he'd been underutilized his entire career. That anger never left him. It's why Ford was so cold toward Lucas at reunion events. It's why he never called to reconcile. Because sometimes you realize someone took years of your life and treated your contributions like they didn't matter. Then there was Shia's predecessor, the young actor who thought method acting meant abandoning professionalism entirely, Josh Hartnett, the actor who treated Ford's set like his own personal acting workshop. On what was supposed to be a straightforward action film, Hartnett came in with a completely different approach. He wanted to improvise, to explore character motivations in real time, to find truth in spontaneity. Ford wanted efficiency, precision, trust in the script and the preparation. From day one, they were fighting. Ford preferred minimal rehearsal. You prepare at home, you come ready, you execute. Hartnett was the opposite. He wanted extensive rehearsals, emotional work-throughs, constant collaboration about character choices. They clashed on everything from work ethic to personal style. The breaking point came during a scene where Ford had choreographed the exact timing of every movement. Hartnett arrived wanting to feel his way through it. "We need to do what's true to the character," Hartnett insisted. Ford's response was ice. "The character would do it exactly like this. You're not the character. You're an actor playing a character. Do your job." The tension became so visible that even audiences noticed it on screen. Critics mentioned the palpable coldness between them. Ford later hinted that he'd never work with Hartnett again. Not publicly, just matter of fact during an interview. Some people understand collaboration, others understand ego. Hartnett never recovered from that implied insult. But if Hartnett was unprofessional, then the next man represented something far more sinister. Ego masquerading as genius. Kevin Costner, the actor-director who couldn't accept being second fiddle, even when it wasn't his film, a Western epic. Ford and Costner were supposed to be co-leads. Perfect casting. But during pre-production, both men wanted the same thing, control. And when you have two massive egos with nothing to lose, collaboration becomes impossible. Costner kept pushing for script changes that would elevate his character. Ford kept pushing for changes that would deepen his. Every meeting became a negotiation. Every revision became a power play. Producers watched helplessly as these two titans basically went to war over who got the better emotional arcs. The final straw came when Costner, during a development meeting, essentially told Ford, You're trying to turn this epic into a therapy session. It was calculated, it was dismissive, and it was an attack on Ford's entire approach to storytelling. Ford stood up, didn't respond, and walked out of the meeting. He never came back. The project died. Both stars walked. And years later, the industry whispered that it was because neither man would compromise. But Ford knew the truth. Costner couldn't handle being in a partnership with someone equally famous. Costner needed to be the biggest star in his own film. Ford refused to accept that diminishment. Then there was the actress who made Ford question everything he believed about collaboration, Julia Roberts, the woman who treated the entire experience like she was doing Ford a favor. Their pairing was supposed to be gold. Hollywood royalty meeting contemporary superstar. But from the first script reading, something was wrong. Roberts arrived unprepared, unfocused, like she was already mentally somewhere else. Ford, who prepares meticulously, found her carelessness infuriating. During production, it only got worse. Roberts would miss call times. She'd give lazy performances in takes that were supposed to be emotional climaxes. She'd make it clear, without words, that she considered this project beneath her. To Ford, that was the ultimate betrayal. You show up, you prepare, you give everything. Anything less is disrespectful to everyone on set. The chemistry between them on screen was non-existent. It was so bad that test audiences literally fell asleep. The film flopped. And Ford, in a rare public moment of frustration, said, "Some actors show up, some actors are just present." Everyone knew who he was talking about. Roberts never acknowledged the criticism, but Ford made his stance clear. Never again. And if she ever tried to apologize, he wasn't interested. Finally, there's the actor whose arrogance was so profound that Ford walked away from a fortune just to escape the collaboration. Tom Cruise, the star who believed his method was the only valid method. During their one major project together, Cruise treated Ford like an aging relic who needed to be taught how to act. He'd make suggestions about Ford's scenes. He'd push for rewrites that would spotlight his character. He'd constantly reference his own success like it was proof of superior talent. Ford tolerated it for weeks, but when Cruise started demanding that Ford's character be rewritten to be less intelligent, to make the contrast more dramatic, something snapped. Ford realized, this man doesn't respect cinema. He respects only himself. Ford walked away, not dramatically, just professionally. He withdrew from the project weeks before filming wrapped. The studio panicked. They pleaded with him to stay. They offered more money. He refused. It was worth a massive financial loss just to avoid spending another day in Cruise's presence. What all 7 of these stories reveal is something profound. Harrison Ford has a code. Show up prepared. Respect the craft. Trust the process. Serve the story. And if you violate that code, there are no second chances. Not ever. Some people call it holding grudges. Ford calls it having standards. And in an industry where mediocrity is celebrated and ego often replaces talent, his standards are probably the reason he's been relevant for 5 decades while most of his contemporaries have faded. At 82, Ford doesn't need anything from Hollywood. He doesn't need the money. He doesn't need the fame, which means the people he refuses to work with have experienced the ultimate Hollywood punishment, irrelevance in his world. He simply moved on, found actors who understand the code, built collaborations with people who respect what he's trying to accomplish. And that's the real power move. Not fighting publicly, not defending yourself in interviews, just quietly, methodically, erasing people from your life and replacing them with better ones. That's not bitterness. That's evolution. If you want more insider Hollywood secrets, the real reasons legendary actors stopped working together, the truth about what really happened on those controversial sets, make sure you're subscribed to Celeb Deja Vu. Because mainstream media will never tell you this. They'll protect the narrative, but we tell you the truth. Subscribe now and prepare to see Hollywood royalty in a completely different light.